Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Myself Dr. Sumeet Patil, and I make videos upon English literature. And up till now I have posted 30 videos, and amongst those 30 videos I have segregated the English literature, wherein if you go to my YouTube channel and watch those videos, you will find that I have made a series of videos wherein from Anglo-Saxon period till this age, or till the latest age, or till the latest era, wherein Victorian literature, which was my latest video I posted on 24th of February 2021, and the succeeding period which I would be highlighting, or which I would be explaining in detail and in depth. So today's video, it is the title of the video is Modernist Literature in not only in England but throughout the globe. What has happened in the after the 1901 to 1999, or up till 1950s, what has happened, and that this age is called as the modern age. Why it is called as modern age? Because science and technology, it has developed so much that there were so many technical advancement or technical innovations or inventions which has happened in this century, and we would be going in detail about this all of this. But there are two great things which has happened from 1890s to 1950s. Is there were wars which were happened during this period, that is from the 1914 to 1918 or till 1919. It was the First World War which has occurred, or which has happened in the year, and after that there was the Great Depression which has happened in United States. It is the 1929 is the year, and then in the later year there was a Second World War which has happened around 1945, 1939 to 1945, when the war ended by the bombs which was put down on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. And to begin with today's video, from the literature point of view and from the monarch point of view, the succeeding period of Queen Victoria was who was the king or who was the queen in the modernist age in United Kingdom. The king was King Edward the Seventh, and after the reign and from where he started ruling in the 1901, as soon as Queen Victoria passed away, and he ruled till 1910, but he also passed away so soon, and his son George V, he started ruling England. And coming to now the literature background, what has happened in the literature throughout the globe, the first and the foremost thing is the war which were happening in the succeeding decade. I told you the First World War which started, and due to this First World War, what has happened is, in the history, now you all know, in literature also, literature is the reflection of society. So people, poets, especially poets and writers and novelists, what they have portrayed is, they have portrayed the life of that age or those decades, such as if we the time frame which I would be right now highlighting is from the 1890s or so, or 1898 is the year when Victorian era, or sorry, the Victorian era ends. 1837 to 1901 is the period, that is Victorian age, and from 1901 till 1950s is the period, this is the modernist period, and from 1915 onwards it is the post-colonial era, or the after war or post-war era. So here I would be talking in detail about these 40 years or these 50 years, and what has happened, which were the movements which started evolving, and how many different types of genres people experimented while writing their novels or while writing their poems, and so on. So to begin with, the first and the foremost thing is period. This was the period of high modernism then, and which was that period is 1910 to 1930. So these 3 decades, 1910 to 1920 and 20 to 30, this was the period of high modernism. And why this period was high modernism? Because, as I told you right now, that in the Victorian era there were so many technological developments that people started to now use those developments. If I talk about 2 or 3 more important points is telephone or telegraphs, which was invented in the Victorian era, which was especially used in the modernist era. Why? To communicate people from one place to another, and that too to a very longer distances. That was the first important point. And then the railway lines which were invented and which were developed during this period, Victorian and modernist era. So the communication between different places, as well as invention of aeroplanes, that is the air route, that was also developed, and the prevailing sea routes, that was working quite well, because to take the luggage, or to take the equipment from one place to another, the sea routes was used. Coming to the next point, that is the First World War, which occurred from 1914, and it ended in the year 1918 or 1919. And here what has happened is, there was on one hand there was emancipation and there was destruction. Emancipation means freedom, and destruction means the things which was caused due to the World War. Now which people were emancipated and which people were destructed, those things I would be highlighting in the upcoming minutes. But due to the World War, what has happened is, the world was in shock, and the economy was also in shock. And because the economy was in shock, there was unemployment, poverty, unhealthy climate, or unhygienic areas which was developing. And why? Because of the only thing, that is the World War first. And coming to the next point, that is dependence on technology was also there in this point. Now dependence of technology means, as I told you, that people started using technologies, that is there was steam engine, then if I talk about communication, that is telephones, telegraphs, and so on and so forth. And telephones, because of telephones, we can say the communication which was very difficult in the previous decades or previous ages, that became very helpful, or that became very quick and easy. And then coming to the next point, that is economic depression of 1930s. Now what has happened in the economic depression of 1930s, not only in United States, it occurred in 1929 in United States, but throughout the world people suffered a lot. And everything which is going on due to the economy, as you all know, we are also living right now in that age wherein people are suffering from unemployment. And similarly in that age, right now, as we are right now going through the COVID-19 pandemic, that time 1918 or somewhere like that, there was Spanish influenza, that is people suffered a lot from that, and the half or more than that of population was swiped away due to the that epidemic, or that Spanish influenza, which happened in the year 1918, as soon as the World War I completes, or it comes to an end. That is the reason there was so much destruction on one hand, and there was another, that is freedom, that is people who were giving their lives to protect their country, they got freedom because the World War ended on one hand. And then coming to the next point, that is Cold Wars. There was now one great thing that has happened is, on one hand there was United States, and on the other hand there was Soviet Union. And this war which was happening, that is who will be the controller, or who will be the most powerful country throughout the globe. This was the war which was happening between United States and Soviet Union, which later on it is called as Russia. And finally, coming to the next point, that is there was large scale refugee movement also, wherein people, they migrated from one place to another in search of jobs, in search of some another good facilities of education and health facilities also. So there was so many changes which happened in this 1910 till 1910, 1920s and 1930s. And coming to the next point, that was the most important thing that occurred during this point of time, that was the feminism, or people or women started to speak up for their own rights, such as their basic rights which was denied from them from ages. And I told you, in the Victorian age and in the Romantic age, that women were not allowed to publish their novels itself. So you can just imagine, Mary Ann Evans was the author who changed her name to George Eliot to pen down her famous novels, that is Middlemarch, Adam Bede, Mill on the Floors, and so on. So you can just imagine, here in the 1930s or 1910, there was the first wave of feminism when in United States women came on the streets and they spoke. There was a rebellion against the we can say the patriarchal domination which was ruling, or which was controlling the society. And coming to the next point, that was as there was, on one hand there was feminism, and on the other hand there was racism also, because you all know that the African people who were migrated from one place to another, or they were took as laborers, but later on they were manipulated and they were treated as slaves. So they also started to raise their voice, and they also they also got freedom with the help of none other than the United States of America, the President of United States of America, that is Abraham Lincoln. He not only fought for these people, but he gave freedom, that is liberty, to those people who were residing in United States. Then coming to the next point, there was a Russian Revolution in the year 1917, and several changes that has happened in Europe. Then coming to the next point, that is neocolonialism, which occurred after the 1940s or so, because after the 1945 there was the Second World War which happened, which I would be dealing in the upcoming videos. But neocolonialism and post-colonialism, that is the new era or new age which changed the world. Why it changed the world? Because there were two world wars which has happened, and several things people have overcome, and there were so many obstacles which they passed on. So this was the whole social and political background of the modernist age. And right now I'm going to tell you about the background of literary background, what has happened in the modernist age, that is which kind of movement which started. Imagist movement is there, symbolist movement is there, Dadaism is there, surrealism is there, and so on. But to begin with, there was the first and the foremost movement which happened is Imagist movement, and which wherein the first and the foremost name which comes is Ezra Pound. And now talking about Ezra Pound, she was born in the year 1885, and she passed away in the year 1972, and her influence was on T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, Robert Frost, and Ernest Hemingway. And now coming to the next important point, that is what has happened in this modernist movement is there was major literary movements and which started in the early 20th century, which was influenced by Charles Darwin and Karl Marx's theories. And coming to the next point, that is psychoanalytic theories was also developed, wherein the foremost name comes of Sigmund Freud. And as you all know, he is the great psychologist, as well as inspired by him there were so many people such as James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, who penned down the new type of writing style, that is stream of consciousness. And this technique was developed in the book of Henry James and William James, Principles of Psychology. Henceforth, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, and William Faulkner, and so many writers, they started to pen down and they used this style in their writing. And coming to the next point, in the movement, when writers felt that they required new form of writing. Now, why these writers felt there should be new form of writing? Because as you all know, in the Romantic age, people were focusing upon the nature, and in the Victorian age, people were focusing upon the society. Which society? Wherein there were so many different changes, and those changes were if you haven't watched those video, Victorian age, which is which I have gave the description below. In the description below, you will get my each and every video and its detail. You can click there and you can watch those videos. Now, coming to the next point, that is, this was also the age of disillusionment, age of machine, age of innovations, age of interrogations, age of war, and age of disintegration. And here what has happened is irony and satire was used as a tool to point out the faults, problems within society. And the important modern characteristics of modernist literature is that these people were opposing Victorian writers, and at the when the Victorian era was about to complete, they felt there should be a change in the literature, and then modernist writers could no longer write in the manner of the Victorian writers, or those writers who were writing in the Victorian age. And then writers of the 20th century saw the coming of the future, which was also the golden age, as the modernist writers penned down. And coming to the next important point, that is modernist poetry. Now, coming to the modernist poetry, the first and the foremost name which highlights or which comes is Thomas Stearns Eliot. Now, he was a dominant figure, and his most famous poem is The Waste Land, and he was totally against Victorian people or Victorianism and Romanticism. Why? Because in this age, what has happened is people suffered a lot, as you all know, because of World War, the economic, the Great Depression, and people have lost their jobs and so on. And then the 20th century poets who based or who got inspired from their writers such as T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and the upcoming poets I would be highlighting. And then coming to the next point in the 19th century poetry is the preoccupation of a dream world, wherein they thought that there would be a world wherein we would be living happily, peacefully, and there would be no wars. But there was only 1 or 2 decades in between when people lived with I should say little peace and little harmony. But as soon as the Second World War starts, there was once again chaos, disturbance. People started to live in shock or in havoc. And coming to the next point, that is which I would be highlighting, that is Irish poetry revival, wherein the most prominent name comes of William Butler Yeats. He was born in the year 1865 and he died in the year 1839, and he won the Nobel Prize in the year 1923. And his most prominent or most famous poem is Sailing to Byzantium, which was published in the year 1928. And the next highlighting poem about William Butler Yeats is The Second Coming, wherein in The Second Coming, what William Butler Yeats is telling is, he is telling that in the Christian faith, they follow that when there is so much false or falseness in the society, or people are criticizing, or people are giving trouble to each and everyone, and there are so many problems which is there in the society. So there would be a time when Jesus Christ will be born, will come again, and he will be liberating, or he will be giving he would be emancipating or annihilating the problems of the world, and then once again there would be a life which would be wherein there would be peace, harmony, or brotherhood. So this is what William Butler Yeats he told in the Second Coming. And then I told you about Thomas Stearns Eliot, and he not only wrote The Waste Land, but he also wrote the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and his objective correlative, which he penned down in his essay, that is Hamlet and His Problems. And then finally, to conclude this video, wherein there are a few writers which I would be just highlighting, but in the upcoming videos I would be giving in detail about those authors such as Siegfried Sassoon, Edmund Blunden, Edward Thomas, Isaac Kosenberg, and Wilfred Owen. So basically this age, as you all right now have witnessed, if you have watched those videos and present video which focused upon modernist literature, in the modernist literature, what all things people have portrayed is the things which was actually going on in the society. And what was actually going on in the society? On one hand there was war, and on the other hand there was economic depression, and the same thing people portrayed in the literature. So that's it for today's video. I hope you all have got a brief idea about modernist literature and modernism in English literature, and those things, several things which has happened in this age. So I will urge you all to share this video as much as possible, and please subscribe to my channel so that you will get the in-depth and in detail idea about the literary ages, and the kings and queens, and what all ages which has came since the birth of English literature. And I am concluding this video with this note, and thank you so much. Take care.